everyone, and welcome to Heads and Dovetails with myself, Jill Harvey-Bush, and Jamie Hubbard. We're going to be honest and say this is take two, isn't it, Jamie? Because we tried to record it last Friday, then we had a bit of a dropout, and I thought I'd press pause and then press start again. We got to the end of the podcast and realised it hadn't recorded. So we're on take two. So at least I know what we're talking about, Jamie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You know something good, deja vu. I was in my car as well, which was good, which was different, and that was nice. It was all going really well, and now my battery light's just come on and said, "Oh, your battery's going low." 2 seconds, sorry.
You
Oh,
go and
sorry.
get your battery charged, and while you're plugging in, you said at the end of the last episode that you had something big that you were going to talk about in this episode.
I
So
did.
it's really over to you to say, come on, spill the beans. I mean, obviously I know what the beans are because you spilled them to me on Friday, but
We've done all this before,
yes,
right? So the
take two.
big take two. The big news was, um, I went to my first daughter's wedding. We went to our first daughter's wedding. We had the most beautiful time. We went up to Windermere and it was just dreamy. It was absolutely dreamy. It was this is a two-parter, isn't it, Jill?
Mm.
We'd already discussed this. We've been through it. There were two things that went on. There was a lot of nerves for me. I'm not. I am. Am I intro? I don't know whether I'm introvert, shy, whatever. I don't like talking to people sometimes.
Well, you don't have to. Now, this is going to be interesting. It's amazing how many extroverts don't like public speaking. So they'll
Am I
cope
an
in a
extrovert?
crowd. But no, I don't think you are an extrovert. But and I mean, when it's a wedding and you're the father of the
Yeah.
bride and there's a speech coming up, it's amazing how people, the most confident of people, can suffer. I know somebody who was
Yes.
being interviewed and asked to do a talk, outwardly really confident. He's a multimillionaire, owns his own business, and came to me because, oh, I don't want to do this. So there
Yeah.
you go. Anyway,
Big.
we digress as
But
usual. Back to
as you
Windermere and the lake.
and it was beautiful. We stopped up there for a couple of nights and had 3 days, and it chucked it down all the way there. And there was a bit of nerves on my part because I'd not only hired a car, I'd got my mom with me and I'd got some grandparents with me, and there was a total combined age of 315 in my car, four of us. I'll be honest, I was a bit scared just in case something happened because there was one 88-year-old and two 80-something-year-olds.
That doesn't
But
sound
anyhow,
old to me anymore, Jamie.
but we got there it was chucking it down all the way. Hire car. It was
Mm,
new cars. Oh, let's not go there.
mm.
I'm not going to digress, but blooming awful. The kids at the hire place loved it because they're 27 and 23. As an older person that's told to keep your eyes on the road, no wonder there's so many accidents going on these days.
Mm.
And it rained the first day, but the sun came out for the second day, and I got dressed up, and Elliot got a lovely way of sorting this wedding out, which was just a colour
Right.
theme for. So we I was allowed to wear whatever I wanted, but please wear this colour tie. This is the tie.
Mm.
Great. So I wore my suit, I wore waistcoat, I wore a I've got a pocket watch that my dad had saved from somewhere, and I had it restored and repaired, and bought an Albert chain for it all those years ago.
Mm.
That's been going 30 years, and I wind it up every now and then and listen to it to help me go to sleep. And I got that on, and I really made an effort for her,
Hmm.
but for me, so that I felt comfortable. Walked her down the aisle. It was beautiful, giggling, and actually, the photographer said that's one of the best walk down the aisles I've ever seen. She said because you two didn't stop laughing from the entrance of the hotel all the way down to the patio area where she got married outside, and views of the lakes in the distance, which was lovely. We laughed, we giggled, we had the best time. So I'm really
And that's
pleased
how it
with that. It
should
was
be,
lovely.
shouldn't it? You
Yeah,
know, as a
yeah,
dad and a daughter. I mean, obviously, I didn't have
yeah.
a dad and I didn't have anybody walk me anywhere or give me to anyone. I wasn't having any of that. You're not giving me, I give you. No, no, hang on a minute.
Oh,
I wasn't
okay.
having any of that.
You sound like my Chloe. Let's not go there. Um,
But she looks
So
stunning. Obviously, I saw a
you've
photograph
seen
on,
some,
yes,
yeah.
and absolutely stunning. What a lovely day. And it was a small wedding, wasn't it? Just to
They
paint the
call them
picture for everybody.
yeah, they call them micro weddings
Oh,
now.
really?
It's a trend. Yeah, 20 people, just us, pretty much just us in the hotel. Um, yeah, it was wonderful. Then the
Well,
next, and it was a lovely sunny day, the most beautiful sunny day. I got burnt
wow.
on the top here, and drink. And this was my other thing that I wanted to mention because for some reason I hadn't got nervous. I hadn't even thought of walking her down the aisle and being nervous for that. So she told me on this little walk, right, when you get there, she said, somebody told me, when you get there, you kiss my cheek and you shake Josh by the hand. And I said, so we're walking down. I said, so I kiss his cheek and shake your hand. And she started giggling. And we just, because she'd had a bit of Prosecco.
Ah,
And we just had it was lovely. And I'd forgotten, I didn't realise that I sort of could have been nervous for that part. So it
yeah,
didn't bother me. But then I was aware that we were doing speeches about whatever later in the day, much later in the day, almost evening. And and I did have a few drinks. Now I don't drink, but and I said this on Friday when we were doing this on Friday. I said I drink to get a better version of me, and then you started having a bit of a yeah. Boy, and it's confidence, and I think I've had it knocked out of me a few times. I think that's what it is, Jill.
yeah,
I think you can build your confidence up, and I think when you're just sort of sitting up when you're standing on that that I think of it like the bars that they do on gymnastics, what's it called, the
yeah,
beam. You're
yes.
standing on that beam and your confidence can be great, but if someone's only got to touch you
Touch you,
and
give
you're
you a,
gone, and
and you're gone. Yeah.
I'm a bit I'm not going to
But
say
going back to
it.
the speech, because we'll go on to the alcohol
Go
afterwards and we'll
on.
discuss
Yes.
that. But you were worrying, I know, about writing your speech and, all sorts of things. So how did the speech come about? What did you do?
Well, I'd made a number of notes and I was happy with my notes. I wasn't happy with the order. I didn't know what I was doing. I've not done a speech as father of the bride before, ever, obviously.
Hmm.
And I mentioned it to one of my clever guys on a Wednesday night, and Matt might listen to this. And thanks, Matt, because it was brilliant. And Matt said, have you used ChatGTP? And I said, what? And he said, put it in ChatGTP. And I said, like, why? I said, I've got to use my computer. No, no, you can do it mobile now. I said, really? He said, yeah, there's an app. Put it on your phone. And
Yeah,
I said,
everything's got an
and he
app.
said, he then said, right, give me some of the bullet points. And I gave him 7 lines, 6 or 7
Hmm.
lines, and little bits. And I now know these are called prompts. You give it a prompt, and within a second,
Hmm.
it had written me a speech. And Matt started reading it, and I was blown away within the first 4 lines. And I just thought, oh, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this. And it was funny because he'd said a certain amount, a decent bit of humour,
Yeah.
but there are elderly relatives there, so nothing
Keep it
rude.
clean.
This, that, yeah, and because he'd put all those prompts in, because he knows how to use it, and I'm now thought about it a bit more. It was probably the perfect speech for him to read out because it had got he.
Mm.
But anyhow, I got it. He did another version, and when you change a prompt, so if you just add one little bit, it doesn't give you the same thing again. It rewrites it
Mm.
wholly so that it can come back to that bit if it's going to be funny. So like comedians do, they do the one funny bit, they go on and then they come back to that funny bit somehow or touch on it, and that
It's
makes
called a
it laugh.
nested loop. We call them nested loops in NLP. So if you
There
listen,
you
Dr.
go.
Well, it's called a nested loop in NLP. If you listen to Dr. Bandler, so Richard Bandler, who trained me, co-founder of NLP, he will open up a million stories. So it's like digressing from one story to another story to
Yes.
another story to another story. But if you listen very carefully, before he finishes whatever he's training or teaching or talking to you or in hypnosis, he then goes back and closes each one of those loops.
Yeah.
So then
Nested
he'll
loop.
end up,
Okay.
yeah. So it's called a nested loop. Nested meaning you get one after the other, and
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
makes sure he goes back and basically finishes every one of those stories. So you
Wow.
don't go away and think, oh, hang on, he started that story, but I never got to know the end of it. So it's
Wow.
used in hypnosis, and it's called a nested loop. There you go. There's a technical term for you.
So,
Anyway,
so yes, that
ChatGPT. I have my own thoughts on it,
you
but
do, you do. But you know something. So what I did was I got those and I read it out to only one person, my mom. And I read it out to my mom, and she said, and I said, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to take out some bits. They're not really me. I'm going to keep some bits
yeah.
because they're funny. And what ChatGPT did is it looked out there on the internet and it looked at Father of the Bride speeches, all of the
Hmm.
ones on the internet, and ones that it got good responses to or good replies to or whatever, and it made my speech. But then, as I say, I edited it quite a bit.
Which I think is good, so.
You've got to
Otherwise, I think
because
if everybody just uses Chat GPT for speeches, it
yeah,
takes out, for me, it takes out that human element of who you really are in the speech. A bit like you've just said
yes,
there. Funnily enough, when I looked at it, it was actually, it would have been great for Matt to read
yes,
out.
yes,
You can
yeah,
see how it was geared towards him as
yeah,
opposed to you. And it is just, I see the positives. And funnily enough, we had a discussion in my little coaching group that I have on Friday talking about it and, how it is good to use for some things and it picks things out. And why wouldn't you use it if it saves time? But there is part of me that thinks, okay, it's going to get better and better and better as they talk about AI. The longer it's around, the more it learns, the more it picks up, the better it gets. But are we losing those little bits of what I call human interaction, human flavor to it, that it becomes so, not the word perfect as such, that we do lose a little bit. And it's just my own thing. I think,
yeah,
like anything, there's a place for it, but I'm
yeah.
not sure. And I know a lot of people who just rely on it. So they don't
No,
edit, they
Oklahoma.
just take it, read it, and you're away. I mean, AI is, but that's the next, isn't it? So going on and on and on. And again, you've got to be wary about what you put in because my stepson's fiance put in her name. Now she's a film director. And it came up with, her name is Sophie Black. It came up with Sophie is a great film director and she does shorts of this, this, and this. And she's also really good at sport. And she's won this medal and that medal. And she's also does this and she also does this, which is completely untrue.
Yes,
So it had taken every Sophie Black, I think, there probably is on the
yes,
internet, and said, this is what's, because how does it distinguish, or it couldn't at this point, distinguish between it? So I
yeah.
think, again, it's really interesting that if researchers are putting in information, how do you know, without even going further into research, which one is correct? And would the interviewer then start asking her about, well, when you were this runner and winning these awards, and the person will be looking at you like, what are you talking about? So,
That's the thing that, and I suppose that's what we've got to be wary of.
hmm,
If you are somebody interviewing somebody, you've got to get your facts straight.
yeah. And
So
unfortunately, people
so
just think you go to Google for that. Otherwise,
uh,
where else do you get your facts?
well, Google. I mean, the good thing about Google. Right. So there's two things. The good thing about Google is if you went onto Google to look for those facts and it went to LinkedIn and her profile,
Right.
then it's what she's put out.
Correct.
What ChatGTP does, which I didn't realize, was in the bottom corner, on the bottom corner, when it does give you a reply to something, it gives you the sources.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay, so that's good. And I've got to say that when Matt did it the other day, well, a few weeks ago now, um, he said, "Oh, it's got a microphone button now," and it had changed that quickly since he'd
Right.
last used it. The
Yeah.
latest update has got a microphone, so you can talk into it rather than typing,
Yeah.
which I suppose if you're good at talking, if you're good at getting things across, you could record something onto ChatGTP and then say, now, can you tidy this up? Can you put in a nested loop or whatever? Can you,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You could do anything like
Yeah.
that. But I've just done it. I've just used nested loop in a
Yeah.
nested loop thing. Um,
And I agree. I
Anyhow,
think, for some
you've
people,
got
if
to
you're
be.
able-bodied, great. But there are people, and I've got a client who's got MS who now really right arm can't type, so he can only type with his left arm. It takes
Okay.
him ages. People who've had strokes, for example, Jamie, who probably
Yes,
can't
yes,
type. So whilst we're going, oh, well, you can talk into it. My sister, for example, she now uses when she's messaging me, she uses the dictate into a text or to a WhatsApp
yes.
and it types a message. And I know when she's done that because it spells my name with a J, not with a G. And if she's typing it, I know she would spell it with a G. And she does it because of her concentration, having had brain aneurysms and recovering from that. She finds it much easier to actually talk
Yeah.
than to try and tap it out on her phone. But anyway, the speech went really well. So now you see we're picking back to close the nested loop about the rest of the wedding, which will then lead us on to opening up another nested loop about alcohol. So
Yeah.
back to the speeches. I bet you weren't the only one who did a ChatGPT speech, did you?
You know the answer to this.
I
We've done this
do.
before. And isn't it funny how this we are doing what ChatGTP does. This podcast today is nothing like what we did on Friday.
Correct.
We've got the same thing, we've got the same things, but it's totally different, isn't it? Everything
Yes.
we've said here. I did need a drink. I find as I said earlier, it's a better version of me. What the drink does for me is it gives me more confidence. I tend to then have something to blame
Mm.
my behavior on, or if I say something, what do I know? I've had a couple of drinks. I can't remember what I said. I tell you what I'm doing lately. Side note, I tell you what I'm doing lately. I'm finding that because, and I don't know if it's old age, if somebody asks me something, did somebody say something about this? I'll just say, you know what? I just can't even remember what they said. And my life has got so much easier. This is an age thing. Jill knows this. She's
You,
laughing.
I'm older than you, and Clive's
She
older than
knows
you.
this.
You are not
Yeah,
old, Jamie.
this is what you do then. This is what you do as you get older. Top tip of the day. Just say, you know what? I can't remember a blooming thing. She said something, but I have no idea what direction the conversation went in. There you are. You're free from all sorts of gossip and somebody blaming you.
Have you only
No,
just learnt that, Jamie? That's a great tip. If you
well,
don't
I've
want
only
to
just
get into
thought
a
about it.
discussion, if you don't
Oh,
want to get into a big argument or
no,
discussion, and somebody said, well, and
exactly.
somebody's trying to win you
Oh,
over onto their side, be on my side, and don't you agree that? Then you have to go, do you know what? I actually tuned out. I wasn't really paying
I know.
attention. So,
Well,
as far as I'm concerned.
I normally blame it on the alcohol. Um, so yeah, I was okay. I was okay. It did, as I say, it took the edge off, and I think it took off that self-conscious, just so self-conscious. I Ellie's probably listening to this. I did all right. I was a bit quick with my speech.
Lots
I
of
was
people
going to do
are,
it.
Jamie. All
Yeah, I was
right.
going to do it a different way. I have been told that since when you listen back to it, it's it's better to listen back to it because we're so used to nowadays listening to people talk a bit quicker because we've got to keep
Mm.
people's attention on screen or whatever on radio or podcasts. Um, that it actually sounded all right. And I think so maybe, and what I didn't say on that speech, which I'm glad I didn't sort of thing, but I can say it here now. So Ellie, this is one of the reasons I started my YouTube. One of the 5 reasons was so that I could get used to talking out loud, whether it's
Mm.
to a camera, whether it's to people. I think doing my YouTube channel had made such a difference to I couldn't have stood up.
Mm.
I probably would have somehow backed out of going to of I don't know years ago, especially when I was really down with Oh,
Yeah.
I only had antidepressants for 2 weeks, and I was just like, flipping heck, I'm not having those anymore.
Yeah.
Get through it the hard way, because that was
Well,
awful.
I mean, we say get through it the hard way, but actually, the antidepressants might help at some point, but the hard way, then when you're trying to come off them, the
Yeah,
doctor just prescribed them to my sister, and we were like, just be
I
aware. And
know.
she said, "What do you mean I might feel worse?" I said, just be aware. Well, she took them for like 2 days and was like, "That's it, I'm off." I was like,
Yeah,
I can't operate like this. She said, I'm not feeling any emotions. I'm like, that's the point, sort of, you're not at
yeah,
the highs and the lows. So we're digressing onto nested loops. But as you say, now you're much better. You've practiced. Amazing again how many people, got a client, very, you would think watching his YouTube channels, yeah, he's really confident, the most confident person in the world, and yet he's painfully shy.
yeah.
Painfully shy. People think, well, how can you do all of this out to the world and yet you're painfully shy? Well, of course, because all you're talking to is you're not seeing everybody's faces. And it's called mind reading. So you're therefore not trying to mind read
Yeah,
everybody's facial expressions.
yeah,
And then you interpret those facial expressions.
yeah, and that,
I'm
yeah,
well aware I give a facial expression. When I'm concentrating, I kind of frown a bit, but that means I'm really concentrating. And the amount of times through my life in any course that I've done that people have then looked at me, the trainer or the teacher or whatever, and said, "Are you all right, Jill? Are you
are you
following
okay?
this? Are you okay? Is it?" And I'm like, "Yes." I'm kind of like, I said, "Oh no, that's just my concentrating face." So yeah, you've got to be aware. But you did well, and alcohol, as you said, makes the best version of you. How do you know what the best version of you is?
It's the version I want to be, I suppose.
So again, it's asking, and that's where I start digging down when we talk about alcohol, is yeah, but what is that version? Because you can have that version without the alcohol.
Yes, but I don't know how to do it yet.
I'm glad you put the word yet on the end, Jamie. And again,
I'm learning.
it's a story we tell ourselves, isn't it? And is it pressure
Yes,
as well to have that drink when you're around people, do you think? Like at
I
a
don't like.
wedding or not? You
No,
just
no, I don't feel so. Okay, we're going to go through my list of drinks. When we got there, I had a big, tall gin and tonic, one of these awful ones in a big, round, bubbly glass. Awful, and I hardly taste the gin, just full of tonic, and I was thought, ugh, waste of flipping money that was. Um,
That's why I always
and then
say, don't put the tonic in, I'll put the tonic in, thank you.
yes, yeah, my mom's good at that. Um, and then I think I had a whiskey on the night before with a meal and water, whiskey and water. And then the next day, yeah, I think I had double whiskey with one ice cube. That's how I like one ice cube. That's all you can put in. No, no,
Yeah.
nothing else. I can drink it neat. I don't mind. But one ice cube just waters it down a little bit so that it lasts a bit longer. Um, what else? Oh, and then the tables. Yeah, after the meal. Yeah, well, there was a lot
Yeah.
of red wine on the table, and I was a bit of a hoover. And when the bottles weren't being, rather than just ordering more drinks or whatever, I was sort of rounding up the veds with the father of the groom, and I think we had a few drinks of red, just finishing it off. Just you don't want them to
You
throw it
can't
away. Or,
waste it, Jamie. I mean,
no, 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 no.
I've got an image of you
So
going round in your very smart suit and tie, and oh, there's a little bit of red left in that one. Just swig that out of the bottle or collect it up, pour it
yes,
into one
exactly.
bottle, and off we go,
Oh, I did that. I did that.
All right. Okay.
Did I do that? I don't think I did. I thought about doing it, but I don't think I actually did it, because I think I found an empty glass and just thought, oh, there you go. That can go in there. There's another. And it wasn't, and people were dispersing, people were going around the hotel and whatever. But I suppose if there's, I mean, this can go back. We could go on about this for hours, couldn't we? And you know that
Mm,
my the passing, and this is the 15th time I've mentioned this, or in the last 10 podcasts, passing of my dad when I was 11 didn't help anything. And
mm,
I think that's where I probably changed from a child to a worried young whatever. And and then you gain confidence in work and things like that. But you've only got to have somebody. There were a couple of them where on the
mm.
when I used to do the boats, really bad bullies, and actually the decline of the business was down to those really bad,
Mm.
horrible bullies. And that's that was so that has an effect on you. And then just, you know, I
Well,
don't know.
things can eat away. I mean, I'm a pretty
Yeah,
confident person, I would say, and don't have a problem talking to, 100, 200, 300 people, not an issue. But I know my confidence was completely knocked, and that was a day in, day out situation with my director. And to the point that my phone would ring and I'd feel sick. I didn't want to go to work in the
yeah,
morning to that sort of extent where you just go, how can one other person do this?
I know.
Now I know with bullies, it's actually what's going on in their life that creates them being the bully, the bad life that they've had or fear that they've
Yeah,
got, and it comes out. But in terms of the drink, it's definitely when I've worked with, people who have been alcoholics, or it can be recreational drugs, of course, or it can be food. Some people
hmm,
will feel more confident if I just go and have a sticky bun, then I'll be fine, I'll be okay. And it is the story that we tell ourselves. It's like people who have a fear of flying, so I'll go back to something I know, who will get on board and they're so used to having a Valium, to help them feel a little bit better. Loads of people do. And we used to say to them, they just say, well, I've got a Valium, it's my belt and braces. Oh, I feel much better. I've just taken my Valium. And you go, so within a minute of taking the Valium, I feel better. That's psychological because the
it is.
Valium,
Yes.
and we used to say when we did the short flight, the Valium won't actually kick in until you get off the flight because it takes half an hour to get into your system, for example. So sometimes it is the story that we tell ourselves in the head, and there has been research. So it's like the placebo effect
Yeah.
of telling somebody, yes, you have a glass of wine, so it tastes like a glass of wine, and they will actually start acting drunk if you give them four or five. And then the researchers have told the group, actually, you've had no alcohol whatsoever. So, again, interesting research how a belief and how the mind can operate if it thinks that this is what it's been
Yeah.
consuming. So, again, it's looking a little bit more at where does that lack of confidence come from? And how can you then overcome that? Because obviously, alcoholics give up the alcohol, and part of the struggle is getting that confidence that they feel that they can go out without
Yeah.
having to have alcohol. And as an alcoholic, they'll often go, oh, one will be fine. I'll just have one. It'll be fine. And of course, it's not. And it starts on a slippery slope again. And a lot of them now have learnt how to operate in the world without having alcohol, that they can be
Mm.
happy and that they can control their feelings. Because obviously, what alcohol's meant to do is make you unconscious. Some people, there are your happy drunks, aren't there? And then there are what I
Yes.
call your depressed drunks. So alcohol has its own kind of effect on people. And the happy drunks, happy, happy, happy. And the depressed ones are, oh, life is awful. And they're in tears. We've all seen them, growing up, or I certainly have with the amount that of alcohol that used to be around when I was younger. And yeah, it's the impact, it's what it does. But
Mm.
you don't drink a lot. And I think,
No.
weddings, special occasions, it's there. Of course you have one because then you're toasting this person, aren't you? And you're having a glass of wine with your
Yes.
meal, and then you have a different, might have something different with your dessert, and then before you know it. But also it's over a period of time at a wedding. Do you see how I've just brought the nested loop back to the wedding? Um, and it's a period of time. So you might have something in the morning, like you're
Mm.
saying Ellie had a prosecco or whatever because she was nervous, and then on through the day. And it's over a period of time, so that's fine. When you think, a lot of my clients, it's quite normal to have a bottle of wine a night, Jamie, or to have a couple of bottles
Yes.
between them and their partner. That's absolutely normal for them. And I know when I get asked, I don't know about you, when I get asked by the doctors or anything like that, um, how much do you drink? And I'm like, well, I can't say I'm teetotal because I have the occasional. Clive and I really live it up when we share a can of cider, so I can't actually say I'm teetotal. But on the other hand, I wouldn't say we drink at all.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just getting a little bit deeper, a little bit more work to done, and I like the way that you said yet, but you
Yes.
can be confident and you can
Well,
create that state.
I think, you know what, for me, I know we all have our different things. People have churches and people have football
Mm.
and whatever. But I think the yoga makes such a difference. Went yesterday outside and our session outside and it was the savasana at the end, the sort of lying there.
Well,
I
you're
think
in
it's called
nature.
corpsing. Yeah, yeah. It's called the corpse pose, I think, or something.
Oh,
And you're just
charming.
lying there looking up, and the clouds are going by, and the birds, and you can hear people arguing in the background very faintly, and dogs or what. But it's beautiful. So I think the yoga's helped me, and maybe that's why I don't drink as much as I. Yeah, maybe that's why I don't
Absolutely.
drink as much as I do.
It's
Okay.
finding different strategies. Okay, it's
Yeah.
finding different strategies. Well, there you go. You see, so have we closed up every loop? You've got one more thing to
One more
say?
thing to say. Happy birthday, Poe. She's 10. Yay!
Oh,
She's
your little
10 yesterday.
dog. Oh, happy birthday,
10.
Poe, for yesterday. Did she
I
get a
know.
special doggy treat?
She got a treat. She ripped his ear off already, and he's like a little lamb with knotted legs for a dog
Oh,
toy thing. She's already ripped his ear off,
oh, bless. Happy
so she's
birthday,
happy.
Poe.
So there you
Jamie,
go.
another 2 weeks gone by, and we'll be chatting again in 2 weeks. Still got lots to talk about. I have to keep scribbling down because I keep thinking, oh, that'd be good to talk about on the podcast. And then, of
I know.
course, because I'm old, I forget. So I have to write it down. So thank you to our loyal listeners. We do have a few who listen to us all the time. I can see the analytics, if you like, that go on beneath when you go into the podcast. And we sometimes have more people and less people, and that's great. If you get one little tip from each podcast that Jamie and I do, then we're happy, aren't we, Jamie?
Yeah. Yes, we
So
are.
thank you
Wonderful.
very much. And as you say, if you're new to us, then please subscribe to make sure you get every episode. We are now down to doing one every 2 weeks. And blimey, those weeks go whizzing by. Jamie, you
Bye.
have a good couple of weeks, and I'll speak to you soon.
And you. Thanks, Jill. Bye.
Bye.